Open Book Chapter 1. The Omega Who Fell from the Future. Wei Wuxian opened his eyes and immediately knew something was wrong. The ceiling above him was made of carved wood, not concrete. The air smelled like incense, not smoke and machines. His clothes were long, white, and tied with a ribbon. "This is not my apartment," he muttered. A sharp pain hit his head, and unfamiliar memories flooded his mind. Omega. Ancient era. Gusu dukedom. Wei Wuxian sat up. "You're telling me I died in the future and woke up as an Omega?" A calm voice echoed in his mind. Timeline stabilized. Wei Wuxian sighed. "Of course." Before he could think more, the door opened. A servant bowed deeply. "Young Master Wei, the imperial decree has arrived." "Ah," Wei Wuxian said lazily. "That sounds dangerous." Open Book Chapter 2. Arranged to the Cold Duke. The imperial hall was silent. Wei Wuxian stood among strangers, trying not to laugh at how serious everyone looked. The minister cleared his throat. "By order of His Majesty, Wei Wuxian shall marry Duke Lan Wangji of Gusu." Wei Wuxian blinked. That was fast. Heavy footsteps echoed. Lan Wangji entered the hall. Tall. Cold eyes. Alpha aura strong enough to make other alphas step back. Wei Wuxian looked him up and down. Wow. Handsome. Deadly. Definitely dangerous. Lan Wangji looked at Wei Wuxian. And stopped. For the first time in years, his heart skipped. "This is my Omega," Lan Wangji said quietly. Wei Wuxian raised an eyebrow. "Sir, you don't even know me." "Lan Wangji not dead?" "I will learn." The minister asked nervously. "Duke Lan, do you accept?" "I accept." "No hesitation." Wei Wuxian smiled. "Guess I'm married now." Open Book Chapter 3. Living with the Duke. The Duke's residence was too quiet. Wei Wuxian noticed it the moment he stepped inside. No shouting servants, no loud conversations, no unnecessary movement. Everything was neat, clean, and calm. "This place feels like a library that learned how to walk," Wei Wuxian said. The servants froze. Lan Wangji paused, then said calmly, "If you dislike it, I can change it." Wei Wuxian blinked. No. I was joking. It's peaceful." Lan Wangji nodded, as if this answer mattered a lot. Wei Wuxian was given a large room connected directly to the Duke's chambers. He stared at the door between them. "That's fast," he muttered. A servant whispered, "Young master, you are the Duke's Omega now." Wei Wuxian waved his hand. "Relax. I don't bite. Usually." That evening, they had dinner together. Lan Wangji sat straight, elegant, silent. Wei Wuxian ate like he hadn't seen food in days. Lan Wangji quietly placed more dishes near him. Wei Wuxian noticed. "You're feeding me like I'm a rare animal." "You are important," Lan Wangji replied. Wei Wuxian paused for half a second, then smiled. "You say scary things very calmly, Duke." Lan Wangji looked at him seriously. "Do you want me to stop?" Wei Wuxian laughed. "No. It's kind of nice." After dinner, Lan Wangji spoke again. "There are rules," he said. Wei Wuxian leaned forward. "I knew it." Lan Wangji continued. "You may go anywhere in the dukedom. You may study, train, or rest. No one may command you except me." Wei Wuxian raised a finger. "And you?" Lan Wangji met his eyes. "I will ask, not command." Wei Wuxian stared at him, surprised. "You really are a green flag." "I still do not know this flag," Lan Wangji said. Wei Wuxian laughed so hard he almost fell off the chair. That night, Wei Wuxian lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Cold Duke. Powerful alpha. Respectful. Handsome. This marriage might not be terrible. In the next room, Lan Wangji stood silently. He listened to Wei Wuxian's breathing through the wall. "My Omega is safe," he thought. That is enough. Open Book Chapter 4. The Omega Who Caused Trouble. By the third day in the Duke's residence, Wei Wuxian was bored. Very bored. The servants walked carefully, spoke quietly, and treated him like glass. "I'm not going to break," Wei Wuxian told a maid. "Unless someone pushes me down the stairs." The maid turned pale. "Please don't test that, young master." Wei Wuxian sighed. This house needs entertainment. So he went exploring. He wandered into the training grounds. Dozens of soldiers froze when they saw him. An Omega. The Duke's Omega. Wei Wuxian smiled brightly. Hello. No one answered. Wei Wuxian picked up a wooden sword from the rack. Do you mind? Before anyone could stop him, he swung. The movement was smooth. Fast. Perfect. The sword stopped a hair's breadth from a training dummy's neck. The soldiers stared. Wei Wuxian blinked. A muscle memory. He laughed awkwardly and dropped the sword. I used to exercise. Unfortunately, Lan Wangji arrived just in time to see everything. The soldiers immediately knelt. Duke. Wei Wuxian turned around slowly. Oh, he said. You weren't supposed to see that. Lan Wangji's eyes were sharp, focused, not angry. You can fight, he said. Wei Wuxian scratched his cheek. A little. Lan Wangji nodded once. Good. That was it. No questioning. No suspicion. Wei Wuxian stared. That's all. You are my Omega, Lan Wangji replied. I trust you. Wei Wuxian felt something warm in his chest. Dangerous, he thought. This man is dangerously nice. Later that day, rumor spread. The Duke's Omega is strange. He laughs too much. He went to the training ground. Wei Wuxian overheard everything while eating snacks. So famous already, he muttered. That evening, Lan Wangji brought him tea. For your heat cycles, he said calmly. Wei Wuxian nearly choked. You say that like you're offering sugar. Lan Wangji looked serious. Is that incorrect? Wei Wuxian laughed until his stomach hurt. That night, Wei Wuxian leaned against the window, looking at the moon. This world is dangerous, he thought. But this Duke, he might be worth staying for. Lan Wangji stood beside him, close but not touching. Sleep, he said softly. Wei Wuxian smiled. Yes, husband. Lan Wangji's ears turned red. Open Book Chapter 5. The Duke Who Fell First. Lan Wangji had fought on countless battlefields. He had faced enemies, bloodshed, and death without hesitation. Yet nothing had prepared him for this. His Omega was laughing. Wei Wuxian sat in the garden, surrounded by servants, explaining something in a lively voice. He used his hands dramatically, his expressions changing every second. And then I thought, why not try it backwards? Wei Wuxian said, grinning. The servants laughed. They were relaxed. Comfortable. Lan Wangji stood at a distance watching. This is dangerous, he thought. I like this too much. Later that afternoon, a young noble visited the dukedom. He bowed deeply. I greet the Duke and the Duke's Omega. Wei Wuxian waved cheerfully. The noble smiled a bit too brightly. I have heard much about you, young Master Wei. Lan Wangji's gaze sharpened. Wei Wuxian tilted his head. All good things, I hope. The noble laughed. Naturally. You are quite famous. Lan Wangji stepped forward. My Omega does not receive guests alone, he said calmly. The noble stiffened. Oh, of course. Wei Wuxian looked at Lan Wangji. You jealous? I am observant, Lan Wangji replied. Wei Wuxian laughed. Sure you are. That evening, they walked together through the lantern-lit corridors. Lan Wangji spoke quietly. If you are uncomfortable with visitors, I will refuse them. Wei Wuxian blinked. You really don't have to guard me like a treasure chest. Lan Wangji stopped. You are more valuable than that. Wei Wuxian stared. You're very bad for my heart, Duke. Lan Wangji not dead? I accept responsibility. That night, Wei Wuxian couldn't sleep. He turned to see Lan Wangji sitting at the table reading. You don't sleep? Wei Wuxian asked. I watch, Lan Wangji answered. Wei Wuxian smiled softly. You're too good, you know. Lan Wangji met his eyes. I fell in love first, he said quietly. That is all. Wei Wuxian's breath hitched. Then he laughed. Well, I don't hate it. Open Book Chapter 6. The banquet that went wrong. The imperial banquet was loud. Too loud. Wei Wuxian sat beside Lan Wangji, watching nobles talk endlessly about land, power, and marriage alliances. Do they ever stop? He whispered. Lan Guangji played calmly. No. Wei Wuxian sighed. I miss my future. At least meetings had coffee. Lan Wangji didn't understand the words, but he nodded anyway. An Omega noble approached, dressed in silk, smiling sweetly. Duke Lan, the Omega said softly. I did not expect you to bring your consort. Wei Wuxian raised an eyebrow. Interesting choice of words. Lan Wangji's response was immediate. This is my spouse, he said coldly. Be respectful. The Omega stiffened. Wei Wuxian smiled brightly. I bite sometimes. The Omega quickly left. Lan Wangji glanced at Wei Wuxian. Was that necessary? Wei Wuxian shrugged. A little. During the banquet, Wei Wuxian noticed something off. Servants moving too quickly. Guards positioned strangely. Enemy scouts, he realized. His smile didn't fade. Instead, he leaned closer to Lan Wangji. Your palace security needs improvement. Lan Wangji turned sharply. Why? Wei Wuxian took a sip of wine. I counted 3 assassins. Lan Wangji's hand moved to his sword. Wei Wuxian gently stopped him. Relax. I've got this. A servant suddenly dropped a tray. Chaos followed. In the confusion, Wei Wuxian disappeared. Minutes later, 3 bodies were found unconscious in the garden. No wounds. No weaknesses. Wei Wuxian returned calmly, holding pastries. What did I miss? He asked. Lan Wanzi stay. Lan Wanzi not dead? I accept responsibility. That night, Wei Wuxian couldn't sleep. He turned to see Lan Wangji sitting at the table reading. You don't sleep? Wei Wuxian asked. I watch, Lan Wangji answered. Wei Wuxian smiled softly. You're too good, you know. Lan Wangji met his eyes. I fell in love first, he said quietly. That is all. Wei Wuxian's breath hitched. Then he laughed. Well, I don't hate it. Open Book Chapter 6. The banquet that went wrong. The imperial banquet was loud. Too loud. Wei Wuxian sat beside Lan Wangji, watching nobles talk endlessly about land, power, and marriage alliances. Do they ever stop? He whispered. Lan Guangqi played gamli. No. Wei Wuxian sighed. I miss my future. At least meetings had coffee. Lan Wangji didn't understand the words, but he nodded anyway. An Omega noble approached. Dressed in silk, smiling sweetly. Duke Lan, the Omega said softly. I did not expect you to bring your consort. Wei Wuxian raised an eyebrow. Interesting choice of words. Lan Wangji's response was immediate. This is my spouse, he said coldly. Be respectful. The Omega stiffened. Wei Wuxian smiled brightly. I bite sometimes. The Omega quickly left. Lan Wangji glanced at Wei Wuxian. Was that necessary? Wei Wuxian shrugged. A little. During the banquet, Wei Wuxian noticed something off. Servants moving too quickly. Guards positioned strangely. Enemy scouts, he realized. His smile didn't fade. Instead, he leaned closer to Lan Wangji. Your palace security needs improvement. Lan Wangji turned sharply. Why? Wei Wuxian took a sip of wine. I counted 3 assassins. Lan Wangji's hand moved to his sword. Wei Wuxian gently stopped him. Relax. I've got this. A servant suddenly dropped a tray. Chaos followed. In the confusion, Wei Wuxian disappeared. Minutes later, 3 bodies were found unconscious in the garden. No wounds. No weaknesses. Wei Wuxian returned calmly, holding pastries. What did I miss? He asked. Lan Wanzi stay. Nothing. On the way back, Lan Wangji spoke quietly. You are hiding many things. Wei Wuxian smiled. So are you. Lan Wangji looked at him seriously. I trust you. Wei Wuxian's smile softened. This man is trouble, he thought. The good kind. Open Book Chapter 7. When the Duke left for war, the imperial order arrived at dawn. Lan Wangji read it once, then folded it neatly. Va? Wei Wuxian asked, already guessing. Yes, Lan Wangji replied. The northern border. Wei Wuxian leaned back. Figures. You look like a war magnet. Lan Wangji almost smiled. Preparations began immediately. Armor polished. Weapons checked. Soldiers gathered. Wei Wuxian watched everything calmly, hands behind his back. You're not worried? Lan Wangji asked. Wei Wuxian shrugged. You're strong. Also stubborn. You'll survive. Lan Wanzi not dead? I will return. Wei Wuxian looked at him seriously. You better. The night before departure, Lan Wangji stood outside Wei Wuxian's room. I will leave guards, he said. And supplies. And authority. Wei Wuxian raised an eyebrow. Authority. Lan Wangji placed a seal in his hand. In my absence you command the dukedom. Wei Wuxian blinked. You trust me with your entire territory? Yes. Wei Wuxian laughed softly. That's a lot of faith for a future stranger. Lan Wangji replied simply, You are my spouse. At dawn the army marched. Wei Wuxian stood at the gate. Lan Wangji mounted his horse and looked down at him. Wait for me, he said. Wei Wuxian waved. Don't get stabbed. Lan Wangji rode away. Wei Wuxian watched until the dust settled. Then he turned around, eyes sharp. All right, he muttered. Let's keep this place alive. That night he opened hidden crates in the Duke's armory. Weapons. Maps. Old strategies. Wei Wuxian smiled. Good thing I remember a few wars from the future. Open Book Chapter 8. The day the enemy came. The attack began at midnight. Wei Wuxian knew before the alarms rang. The air felt wrong, too quiet, too tense. He stood on the balcony of the Duke's residence, looking toward the outer walls. Torches flickered in strange patterns. So they finally decided to try, he murmured. Moments later, the warning bells rang. Enemy forces. The dukedom erupted into chaos. Guards rushed to their positions. Servants panicked. Messengers ran through the streets. Wei Wuxian calmly tied his hair back. A nervous guard bowed. Your Grace, what are your orders? Wei Wuxian glanced at the map spread across the table. They're testing our defenses, he said. Not a full invasion. Yet. The guard stared. How do you know? Wei Wuxian smiled. Because if I were them, I'd do the same. He pointed. Reinforce the west gate. Evacuate civilians from the south quarter. Quietly. The guard hesitated only a second, then nodded. Yes. Arrows flew over the outer walls. Fire followed. Wei Wuxian walked through the command hall like he had lived there his entire life. Water teams here. Archers, don't chase, hold. No counterattack yet. The generals exchanged looks. This Omega spoke like a seasoned commander. And he was right. As the first wave retreated, Wei Wuxian exhaled slowly. That was just a greeting, he said. A commander asked carefully. Then what comes next? Wei Wuxian's eyes darkened with sharp intelligence. The real attack, he answered. Tonight. After sunset, Wei Wuxian returned to his room. He opened a hidden compartment beneath the floor. Inside lay black armor, light and flexible, marked with no insignia. A mask rested on top. Wei Wuxian picked it up, smiling faintly. I hoped I wouldn't need this, he said. But here we are. He fastened the armor with practiced ease. The playful Omega disappeared. In his place stood a warrior. On the city walls, whispers spread that night. A shadow moved faster than arrows. The enemy couldn't touch him. He fought like he knew every move before it happened. By dawn, the enemy retreated again. The dukedom still stood. Wei Wuxian returned before sunrise, removing the mask. He yawned. That went well. Far away, on the battlefield, Lan Wangji suddenly felt his heart tighten. Something happened, he thought. And my Omega is at the center of it. Open Book Chapter 9. The Shadow of Gusu. After the first attack, the enemy did not retreat far. They camped just beyond the hills, watching, waiting. Wei Wuxian knew this meant only one thing. They're angry, he said cheerfully. Good. That night, the second wave came. This time it was fast, coordinated, deadly. Wei Wuxian stood atop the city wall, mask in place, cloak moving with the wind. Below him, soldiers whispered. The shadow is here. The masked guardian. Wei Wuxian leapt down. The battlefield became quiet. The enemy commander shouted orders. Too late. Wei Wuxian moved like he could see the future. Because he could. He dodged before arrows flew. Struck before blades swung. Not brutal. Efficient. Enemies fell unconscious, disarmed, terrified. He's not human, someone screamed. Wei Wuxian tilted his head. Rude. By dawn, the enemy camp was in chaos. Their supplies burned. Their leaders captured. The masked warrior stood at the hilltop, watching them flee. He raised one hand. The soldiers of Gusa cheered. By morning, stories spread through the city. The shadow saved us again. He fights alone. He protects the Duke's land. Wei Wuxian listened while eating breakfast. That guy sounds amazing, he said thoughtfully. A servant nodded eagerly. Truly. Whoever he is, the Duke would reward him greatly. Wei Wuxian hummed. I'm sure he would. That afternoon, a messenger arrived from the front lines. Lan Wangji read the letter carefully. It described a masked warrior, a guardian, a genius strategist. Lan Wangji closed his eyes. This presence, he thought. It feels familiar. He folded the letter. My Omega is doing something reckless, he said calmly. The general stared. Should we be worried? Lan Wangji stood. No. He reached for his sword. We should go home. Open Book Chapter 10. The Duke who came back early. The war ended faster than expected. Too fast. Lan Wangji stood on the battlefield, sword still clean, listening to reports that no longer mattered. The enemy has withdrawn completely, a general said. Their supply lines collapsed. Lan Wangji nodded once. That was not my doing, he thought. He mounted his horse without ceremony. We return to Gusu, he ordered. The generals exchanged looks. Duke, the victory banquet. I am needed elsewhere. That was the end of the discussion. 3 days later, the gates of Gusu dukedom opened. The city was intact. More than intact, it was thriving. Lan Wangji's eyes narrowed slightly. Impossible. Wei Wuxian was in the command hall, half asleep, reading reports. Enemy morale broken. Civilian casualties 0. Supplies fully stocked. He yawned. A productive week. The doors opened. Heavy, familiar footsteps echoed. Wei Wuxian froze. Oh. Lan Wangji stood there in travel armor, dust on his cloak, eyes sharp. Alive. Safe. Wei Wuxian smiled automatically. You're early. Lan Wangji crossed the room in 3 steps and pulled him into an embrace. Firm. Protective. Careful. You are unharmed, Lan Wangji said quietly. Wei Wuxian blinked, then relaxed into him. Told you not to get stabbed. Lan Wangji almost laughed. Lan Wangji looked around the hall. Maps marked with precise strategy. Orders written in Wei Wuxian's hand. He picked one up. This formation, Lan Wangji said. Only military academies teach this. Wei Wuxian scratched his cheek. I read a lot. Lan Wangji looked at him. You are the masked warrior. It wasn't a question. Wei Wuxian sighed. You're supposed to be shocked. Lan Wangji shook his head slowly. I am proud. Wei Wuxian stared. That's it. Lan Wangji cupped his face gently. You protected my people. My land. My home. His thumb brushed Wei Wuxian's cheek. And you did it alone. Wei Wuxian smiled softly. Guess I'm useful. You are extraordinary, Lan Wangji replied. Outside, soldiers whispered. The Duke returned. And the shadow disappeared. Inside the hall, Lan Wangji held his Omega a little closer. Next time, he said calmly, we fight together. Wei Wuxian grinned. Deal. Open Book Chapter 11. The Omega who was revealed. The announcement was made the next morning. All officials, generals, and nobles of the dukedom were summoned to the main hall. Wei Wuxian stood beside Lan Wangji. Hands folded, expression calm, almost bored. Whispers filled the room. Why is the Duke's Omega here? This is a military meeting. Lan Wangji stepped forward. The room fell silent instantly. During my absence, Lan Wangji said evenly, this dukedom was attacked. Murmurs spread. Lan Wangji continued, it was defended. Perfectly. He turned slightly and placed a hand on Wei Wuxian's shoulder. The masked warrior known as the Shadow of Gusu, Lan Wangji said, is my spouse. Silence. Then. What? An Omega? He led the defense. Wei Wuxian waved casually. A senior general stepped forward, still stunned. Young Master Wei. Those strategies, they were flawless. Wei Wuxian smiled. Thank you. I like efficiency. Another official bowed deeply. Then another. Soon the entire hall followed. Wei Wuxian blinked. This feels excessive. Lan Wanzi Lin Nit Go Lo. They are acknowledging you. Wei Wuxian whispered back. I prefer snacks. Lan Wangji raised his hand again. From this day forward, he declared, Wei Wuxian holds full authority equal to mine. Gasps echoed. No one, Lan Wangji added calmly, may question his commands. Wei Wuxian glanced at him. You really don't do things halfway, do you? Lan Wangji replied. Never with you. Later, in the quiet of their chambers, Wei Wuxian collapsed onto a chair. Well, he said, I guess my secret identity days are over. Lan Wangji poured him tea. You did not want them. Wei Wuxian grinned. True. Hiding is tiring. Lan Wangji sat beside him. You changed this land. Wei Wuxian shrugged. I just applied future logic. Lan Wangji looked at him seriously. You belong here. Wei Wuxian met his gaze. Yeah, he said softly. I think I do. Open Book Chapter 12. The Duke and His Genius Omega. Life in the dukedom changed after the revelation. And by changed, Wei Wuxian meant very inconveniently respectful. Everywhere he went. Good morning, Your Grace. Please advise us, Your Grace. We await your orders, Your Grace. Wei Wuxian covered his ears. I miss being ignored. Lan Wangji, walking beside him, said calmly, I do not. In court meetings, Wei Wuxian sat next to the Duke like he owned the place. Because he did. An official nervously presented a report. The trade route requires. Wei Wuxian glanced once. Change the schedule. Double guards at night. Reduce taxes by 2%. The official froze. YJs. Lan Wanzi not that? Agreed. Wei Wuxian leaned back. You don't even question me anymore. I never needed to, Lan Wangji replied. Wei Wuxian smiled. That's unfairly attractive. Their private life was comfortable. Too comfortable. Wei Wuxian sprawled across the bed. Half on Lan Wangji's side. This bed is huge, he said. Yet somehow I end up stealing your space. Lan Wangji adjusted the blanket around him. You may have all of it. Wei Wuxian peeked at him. Even you. Yes. Wei Wuxian laughed softly. You really are only soft with me. Lan Wangji answered without hesitation. That is correct. One afternoon, Wei Wuxian brought strange designs from memory. This is a signal system, he explained. Fast communication without messengers. Lan Wangji studied it carefully. It will change warfare. Wei Wuxian grinned. Good thing you married a genius. Lan Wangji looked up. I knew. That evening, they stood on the city wall together. The land was peaceful. The people safe. Lan Wanzi spoke Eli. I once believed strength was only in the sword. Wei Wuxian glanced at him. And now? Lan Wangji turned to him fully. Now I know it is also in wisdom. Wei Wuxian smiled. Careful. I might start believing you. Lan Wangji took his hand. I want you beside me, he said. In every future. Wei Wuxian squeezed back. Good. Because I'm not planning to leave. Below them, the city lights glowed. The Duke and his Omega stood together. Not ruler and consort, not Alpha and Omega. But equals. Partners. Home. Open Book Chapter 13. The Duke Who Learned to Relax. Wei Wuxian decided the dukedom worked too hard. This place survived a war, he announced one morning. It deserves a break. Lan Wangji paused mid-document. Explain. Wei Wuxian smiled. Holiday. The officials panicked. A holiday? One asked weakly. Yes, Wei Wuxian said cheerfully. Mandatory rest. No meetings. No reports. Lan Wangji considered it. Then nodded. Approved. The officials stared in disbelief. With the city calm, Wei Wuxian dragged Lan Wangji outside. We're going to the market, he said. Lan Wanzi Berlinket? In public. Yes. Like normal people. I am a duke. Wei Wuxian grabbed his sleeve. You are my husband. Lan Wangji followed immediately. At the market, chaos happened instantly. People bowed. Whispered. Offered gifts. Wei Wuxian groaned. I regret everything. Lan Wangji calmly blocked anyone who got too close. Wei Wuxian noticed. You're guarding me again. I always will, Lan Wangji replied. Wei Wuxian smiled. I know. They stopped at a street food stall. Wei Wuxian bought skewers and handed one to Lan Wangji. Lan Wangji examined it like a weapon. It is safe, Wei Wuxian said. Lan Wangji took a careful bite. His eyes widened slightly. Good. Wei Wuxian laughed. Congratulations. You're officially human. That night, they sat on the roof, watching the stars. Wei Wuxian leaned against Lan Wangji's shoulder. You know, he said. I never planned to stay in this world. Lan Wangji stiffened slightly. Wei Wuxian continued. But now, I can't imagine leaving. Lan Wangji placed a cloak around him. Then do not, he said softly. Wei Wuxian smiled. I won't. Below them, the dukedom slept peacefully. Above them, the future waited. Together. Open Book Chapter 14. The Duke who was slightly jealous. Lan Wangji did not get jealous often. But today was educational. Wei Wuxian was in the courtyard laughing. Not just smiling. Laughing. The reason? A young scholar from the capital. He's explaining the new accounting system. A servant whispered nervously. Lan Wangji watched in silence. The scholar leaned closer. Young Master Wei, your mind is truly brilliant. Wei Wuxian waved his hand. I just hate inefficiency. Lan Wangji stepped forward. The temperature dropped. Is there a problem? The scholar asked politely. Lan Wangji met his eyes. Yes. The scholar swallowed. May I ask what it is? You are standing too close to my spouse. The scholar bowed so fast he nearly fell. And my apologies. Wei Wuxian stared. You're jealous. I am observant, Lan Wangji replied. Wei Wuxian laughed. You said that before. Later in their chambers, Wei Wuxian leaned back against the table. You know I'm not going anywhere, right? Lan Wangji not dead? I know. Then why the glare? Lan Wangji considered it carefully. I do not like sharing your attention. Wei Wuxian's smile softened. That's cute. Lan Wangji frowned slightly. It is not meant to be. Wei Wuxian stepped closer. Too bad. It is. That night, Lan Wangji placed an extra guard outside the door. Wei Wuxian noticed. Expecting an invasion? No. Lan Guanji plaid. Precaution. Wei Wuxian laughed. From scholars. Lan Wangji answered seriously. From anyone. Wei Wuxian rested his head on Lan Wangji's shoulder. Relax, he said. I chose you. Lan Wangji wrapped an arm around him. I know, he replied quietly. And I will keep choosing you too. The dukedom slept peacefully. And the Duke of Gusu learned an important truth. Jealousy, when quiet and respectful, was not so terrible after all. Open Book Chapter 15. The future in Wei Wuxian's hands. Wei Wuxian never liked wasting time. Unfortunately, the dukedom was very good at it. So, he said one morning, standing before a table full of officials, why does it take 10 days to deliver supplies that need 3? The officials looked at each other. That is how it has always been done, one replied carefully. Wei Wuxian nodded. Yes. And that's the problem. Lan Wangji sat beside him, calm and silent. A quiet pressure that made everyone sit straighter. Wei Wuxian rolled out maps and charts. New road routes, he explained. Signal towers for fast communication. Rotating supply storage instead of central hoarding. The room went silent. A general hesitated. These methods are unusual. Lan Wangji spoke immediately. They will be implemented. No debate. No delay. Wei Wuxian smiled. I like you. Within weeks, the results were impossible to ignore. Messages that once took days arrived in hours. Border alerts came before attacks. Trade increased. Crime dropped. The people of Gusu began calling it a miracle. Wei Wuxian corrected them. It's called planning. A letter arrived from the emperor. The efficiency of Gusu dukedom exceeds expectations. The strategist behind it is requested at court. Wei Wuxian read it, unimpressed. I hate meetings. Lan Wangji replied calmly. You may decline. Wei Wuxian blinked. Really? Yes, Lan Wangji said. You belong here. Wei Wuxian smiled. Warm and genuine. You're dangerously supportive. I am your husband, Lan Wangji answered. That night, Wei Wuxian lay sprawled across the bed, exhausted. I could change the whole world, he murmured. But I think I'll start with this dukedom. Lan Wangji removed his gloves and sat beside him. You already have. Wei Wuxian turned his head. You're not worried I'm too powerful? Lan Wangji shook his head. I trust you. Wei Wuxian laughed softly. That's your answer to everything. Yes, Lan Wangji agreed. It is. Outside, the dukedom thrived. Inside, the future rested safely in the hands of a genius Omega, and the duke who loved him without condition. Open Book Chapter 16. Recognized by the throne. The imperial summons arrived sealed in gold. Wei Wuxian turned the letter over in his hands. That's a lot of decoration for bad news. Lan Wangji read it once. It is not bad. Wei Wuxian squinted. You say that very confidently. The imperial court was grand, loud and exhausting. Wei Wuxian stood beside Lan Wangji, trying not to yawn. The emperor leaned forward. So you are the Omega who defended Gusu? Wei Wuxian smiled politely. I helped. The emperor laughed. Modest. Scrolls were read. Trade growth. Military efficiency. Zero civilian loss. The court murmured. This level of governance, the emperor said, rivals the central ministries. Wei Wuxian whispered to Lan Wangji. Are we in trouble? Lan Wangji replied softly. Never. The emperor stood. I grant Wei Wuxian the title of imperial strategist of Gusu, he declared, and authority equal to any duke within his domain. Gasps echoed. Wei Wuxian blinked. That's a promotion. Lan Wangji bowed deeply beside him. My spouse accepts with gratitude, he said. Wei Wuxian elbowed him gently. You didn't ask me. Lan Wangji replied calmly. You would accept. Wei Wuxian sighed. True. After the court dismissed, the emperor spoke privately. You trust him completely, the emperor observed. Lan Wangji answered without hesitation. With my life. The emperor smiled. Then the empire is fortunate. That night, back in Gusu, Wei Wuxian stretched out dramatically. Imperial strategist, he said. Sounds exhausting. Lan Wangji poured him tea. You may ignore the title. Wei Wuxian grinned. I will abuse it instead. Lan Wangji not dead? I expected no less. Under the quiet stars, the Duke and his Omega stood side by side. Not elevated by power, but by trust. Open Book Chapter 17. When they fought side by side, peace never lasted long. Wei Wuxian knew that. The southern border is moving strangely, he said, tapping the map with his finger. Too quiet. Lan Wangji studied it. A probe. Wei Wuxian smiled. You're learning. Lan Wangji replied calmly. From the best. The attack came 3 nights later. Not loud. Not reckless. A hidden force slipped past the outer defenses, aiming straight for the command center. Unfortunately for them, Wei Wuxian had planned for this. Close Gate 3, Wei Wuxian ordered. Cut their retreat. Lan Zhan, left flank. Lan Wangji drew his sword. Understood. They moved without discussion. Perfect timing. Perfect trust. The enemy commander froze when he saw them. The Duke of Gusu and his Omega? Wei Wuxian waved. Surprise. Lan Wangji struck first, clean, precise, overwhelming. Wei Wuxian followed. Not with brute force but strategy. He redirected troops, collapsed formations, predicted every move. This is impossible. The enemy shouted. Wei Wuxian tilted his head. You're just outdated. Within an hour it was over. The enemy surrendered. No casualties. No destrucción. Lan Wangji wiped his blade and turned to Wei Wuxian immediately. Are you hurt? Wei Wuxian checked himself. Not even scratched. You. Lan Wangji shook his head. Wei Wuxian grinned. We make a good team. Yes, Lan Wangji agreed. We always have. As dawn broke, soldiers knelt. We swear loyalty, they said, voices steady and proud. Wei Wuxian glanced at Lan Wangji. You inspire fear. Lan Wangji looked at him instead. You inspire belief. Wei Wuxian paused. Okay, that one was smooth. Later, standing on the walls, Wei Wuxian stretched. Well, he said, I think that was the last big problem. Lan Wanzi not dead? Peace will follow. Wei Wuxian smiled, relaxed and certain. Good. I'm tired. Lan Wangji placed a cloak over his shoulders. Then rest, he said. I am here. The sun rose over Gusu. No Savos. No Musks. Only a duke and his Omega. Side by side, undefeated. Open Book Chapter 18. A future chosen together. Peace settled over Gusu like a gentle blanket. No alarms. No urgent reports. No enemies waiting in the dark. Wei Wuxian found it suspicious. It's quiet, he said. Lan Wangji replied calmly. That is called peace. Wei Wuxian nodded slowly. I'm not used to it. The renewal ceremony was held at dawn. Not because it was required, but because Wei Wuxian thought it would look nice. This isn't a second wedding, Wei Wuxian explained. More like updated vows. Lan Wangji accepted this immediately. Then I will prepare. The officials learned not to ask questions. They stood before the people of Gusu dressed simply. No heavy crowns. No armor. Just them. Lan Wangji spoke first. I vow, he said steadily, to trust you without doubt, to stand beside you in war and peace, and to protect what you love. Wei Wuxian smiled, then replied easily. I vow to stay, he said. To use what I know to build, not destroy, and to choose you, even when the future changes. Lan Wangji took his hand. I have already chosen you, he said. Life after that was good. Wei Wuxian worked when he wanted, rested when he didn't. Lan Wangji ruled calmly, efficiently, and always with Wei Wuxian beside him. They argued sometimes. About tea temperature. About work hours. About whether rooftops were acceptable places to nap. Wei Wuxian won most of those arguments. One evening, they sat on the city wall again. Wei Wuxian leaned back, relaxed. You know, I could have ended up anywhere. Lan Wangji replied quietly. But you are here. Wei Wuxian looked at him, eyes soft. Yeah. And I wouldn't trade it. Lan Wangji squeezed his hand. The future, he said, belongs to us. Wei Wuxian smiled. Good, he answered. I planned it that way. Below them, the lights of Gusu shone steadily. A safe land. A strong future. And at its heart, an Alpha Duke and his Omega strategist. Equal in power. Bound by trust. Cherry Blossom Extra Chapter 2. The Duke and the Unnecessary Rival. The problem appeared in the form of a letter. Wei Wuxian read it out loud while lounging on the couch. To the esteemed strategist Wei, I wish to consult you on matters of reform. He paused. Polite. Lan Wangji looked up from his work. Who sent it? Wei Wuxian checked. A young lord from the eastern province. Lan Wangji's pen stopped moving. The next day, the young lord arrived. He was respectful, well-dressed, smiling. Strategist Wei, he said warmly. It is an honor. Wei Wuxian smiled back. Happy to help. Lan Wangji sat beside Wei Wuxian the entire time. Very close. Unnecessarily close. The young lord spoke enthusiastically. Your reforms have inspired many of us. I hoped. Lan Wangji placed a cup of tea directly into Wei Wuxian's hand. Wei Wuxian blinked. I wasn't thirsty. You are now, Lan Wangji replied. The young lord hesitated. Later, the young lord laughed at one of Wei Wuxian's jokes. Lan Wangji stood up. I will escort you, he said calmly. The meeting isn't over, the young lord said. It is, Lan Wangji replied. Outside, the young lord bowed deeply and left at record speed. Wei Wuxian watched him go, then turned slowly to Lan Wangji. You were jealous. I was efficient, Lan Wangji corrected. Wei Wuxian laughed. You scared him. Lan Wanzi not dead? Good. That night, Wei Wuxian leaned against Lan Wangji. You know I only like you, right? Lan Wangji wrapped an arm around him. I know, he said. But I still prefer reminders. Wei Wuxian smiled and kissed his cheek. Then consider this a daily reminder. Lan Wangji closed his eyes. Accepted. Lan Wangji wrapped his arms around him. I know, he said quietly. I just like reminding the world. Cherry Blossom Extra Chapter 5. My husband is scarier than me. The meeting was supposed to be simple. Lan Wangji sat at the head of the long table, calm, cold, unreadable. The mafia leaders around him were tense but respectful. Wei Wuxian sat beside him. Bored. Very bored. One man cleared his throat. We propose a change in territory distribution. Lan Wangji said nothing. The silence stretched. Wei Wuxian leaned forward, smiling brightly. Oh, he said cheerfully. You want more land? The man nodded quickly. Igrejas. Wei Wuxian tilted his head. Why? The man opened his mouth. Closed it. Sweat appeared. Another leader laughed nervously. Strategist Wei is joking, of course. Wei Wuxian smiled wider. Am I? Everyone froze. Lan Wangji finally spoke. Explain your proposal. The men rushed through their explanation at record speed. Halfway through, Wei Wuxian sighed. This is inefficient, he said lazily. He reached into his pocket and placed a small device on the table. Click. Lan Wangji glanced at it. What is that? Wei Wuxian blinked. Oh, a recorder. The room went silent. Wei Wuxian added, still smiling. It records lies very clearly. It did not. But no one knew that. One man panicked. We withdraw our proposal. Another stood up. We agree to your terms. A third nearly bowed. Lan Wangji what chet gan li. Wei Wuxian leaned back, satisfied. After the meeting ended, Lan Wangji walked beside Wei Wuxian in the corridor. You frightened them, he said. Wei Wuxian grinned. I didn't even try. Lan Wangji stopped. You enjoy this? Wei Wuxian laughed. Nope. I enjoy going home with you. Lan Wangji's expression softened immediately. Later, alone, Wei Wuxian stretched. So, he said, who's scarier? You or me? Lan Wangji answered without pause. You. Wei Wuxian gasped. Rude. Lan Wangji pulled him close. But only to others, he added quietly. Wei Wuxian smiled and rested his forehead against Lan Wangji's. Good. I only want to be soft for you. Lan Wangji kissed his hair. And you are. Cherry Blossom Extra Chapter 6 Last. When Lan Wangji gets sick. Wei Wuxian realized something was wrong when Lan Wangji sneezed. Lan Wangji never sneezed. Lan Zhan. Wei Wuxian said slowly, placing a hand on his forehead. You're warm. I am fine, Lan Wangji replied immediately. Wei Wuxian gasped. You're lying. That's illegal. Lan Wangji was put to bed within minutes. Blankets? Wrapped. Medicine? Ready. Water? Refilled every 5 minutes. Wei Wuxian sat beside him, very serious. Now you understand how I feel when you hover. Lan Wangji Flawen Fai Li. This is excessive. Wei Wuxian smiled sweetly. No, this is love. Lan Wangji tried to sit up. Wei Wuxian gently pushed him back down. No moving. I have work. Wei Wuxian leaned closer. I am your work now. Lan Wangji fell silent. Defeated. Later, Wei Wuxian fed him soup. Lan Wangji accepted it quietly, ears slightly red. You're being very obedient, Wei Wuxian teased. Lan Wangji said softly. You take care of me well. Wei Wuxian paused. Hey, that's unfair. Now I'm emotional. That night, Lan Wangji woke to find Wei Wuxian asleep beside him, still holding his hand. Wei Ying, he murmured. Wei Wuxian stirred. You should rest. Wei Wuxian smiled sleepily. I am. With you. Lan Wangji tightened his grip gently. By morning, Lan Wangji felt better. Wei Wuxian looked exhausted. Lan Wangji reached out and brushed Wei Wuxian's hair back. Thank you, he said quietly. Wei Wuxian grinned. Anytime. Mafia boss or not, you're still my husband. Lan Wangji not dead? And you, he replied, are my home. Wei Wuxian blinked. Okay, wow. Ending on that line is unfair. Lan Wangji allowed a small smile. Outside, the world was loud and dangerous. Inside it was calm. And they were exactly where they belonged.